The last week has been the most important and exciting for Tesla investors in its history. Both drama and milestones being hit. We'll discuss every one of these. Elon-Trump feud, Robotaxi launch and first autonomous delivery, Tesla Q2 deliveries, China, new battery factory announced, Elon announces a potential for a new solar Gigafactory. We got the bulls here with us today. I've got Tesla boomer mama, the queen, Alexandra Merz. We got Cern Basher, the bot bull. And we have Simon Hale, call him the financial bull. Welcome, everybody.
Hey, Herbert. Good to be here.
Hi, Herbert.
Hi, Herbert.
So first topic we like to always hit right off the bat is the Tesla stock. Simon, we haven't heard from you in a while as a portfolio manager, and you've seen all this happening. What's your thoughts on the stock behavior these days? The company and the product. I don't look at the quarterly stock movement.
A very realistic bull, questioning certain decisions.
The rational bull. I enjoy listening to bears.
We're looking for the red flags. You're supposed to react.
The longer term opportunity for Tesla is like no other company that I've ever seen.
I think it's, and Cern, you can probably chime in here as well, but I think that the stock is in discovery mode because we're having, the valuation on future earnings, the present value of Tesla stock on future earnings, there's a huge variable and when that happens. And so the odd thing is when we're speaking to clients, and we've had a few clients call, like I said, we probably had 10 clients that have said, look, we're not comfortable owning. So as I was saying, with respect to clients, the majority of clients that have capitulated or do not want to own the stock, they've already sold out. But that's a very, very small percentage. I would say 5%. And the rest are in the stock. We have received some calls from clients concerned about the political drama between Trump and Elon. And so we're addressing that. But our view is that is noise. And the only thing that will drive the future true value of the company is going to be the valuation of its future cash flows. And that has nothing to do with the political drama between Elon and Donald Trump. Now, I spoke to a client today and they were worried that Trump threatened to take away contracts from Elon's companies and his empire. And I look at that and we go, okay, so first of all, SpaceX, we're not invested as a private company. That's the majority of the government contracts. But that being said, is the government really going to take away when they're the lowest cost provider for launching satellites into space? And then in terms of Tesla, Elon's always said that they're going to make the most compelling vehicle. The EV credits and all of those extras or bonuses to try and transition people to renewable or to EVs, they're not necessarily for Tesla. They are for the legacy automakers so that they can make that transition. So again, we're talking to clients and we say, look, the valuation right now we're in price discovery mode, and it's really difficult because honestly, on whether they fully solve, and I'd love to hear your guys' take on this today, they need to fully solve FSD, so unsupervised for everyone. And the releases that we've been receiving in our updates have been very minuscule in the last 6 months or so. And so I suspect what's going to happen is there's going to be this watershed moment that all of a sudden, boom, it's solved and you can get unsupervised. Now, I don't know what the regulatory landscape is on that, but where it's just absolutely perfect. And so when that happens and Wall Street wakes up, is it going to be in 3 months, 2 months? Is it next month? Is it 6 months? Is it a year? I don't think it's more than 2 years. And that's what's going to drive that price. So we could see in my view, I could see the stock price hover between $200 and $450, $500 until you see some sort of major catalyst. But we're okay with that because we're not owning the stock for what it's going to be next year at 400 or 500 or 600. We think this is a serious compounder that is a 10x and possibly another 10x after that. And so when talking to a client today, and the client was worried about Tesla stock, and they said, hey, how have we done with it? We've accumulated. Should we be worried? after I explained that to her, and she has significant wealth in the US and Canada, she said, can we buy more? She said, you really? You say this is, I don't like Elon, but oh my gosh, the potential is so big for this company. How can we buy more? And I said, look, we're already maxed out in the portfolio, but if you'd like to add to the side, we can do that. And we have a few clients that really believe in the narrative, and they've overweighted even more so than our max 10, 12%.
Yeah, thank you, Simon. Yeah, that's great. It's great to hear from you because you always go, you've got the broad view, you speak to many, many clients, and it looks like that the work you've been doing for a year, like you said earlier, many people who's already couldn't handle it, that don't want to be part of Tesla stock, they've already left Tesla stock. So that's the conversation you've been having. Let's get with you. Yeah, Cern, what's your thoughts about what's going on with the Trump Elon feud and what's happening to the stock?
Yeah, well, I think, as you know, I believe that the Trump-Elon feud is a fake feud. I think if they were truly feuding, it would be a lot nastier than it has been. I think that this feud is just kind of played up for the media, for social media. A sure sign of Trump fighting with somebody is when he gives them a nickname. He hasn't done that with Elon yet, and in fact, he's kind of laughing and joking about it. Some of the things he's talked about deporting Elon are so preposterous and so silly that you just can't even take him seriously. And so I'm kind of shocked that people do. But that's the nature of Trump, and he likes the attention. As it relates to the stock, for me, the Trump-Elon feud is just kind of noise. Ultimately, it comes down to execution by the company. Certainly, the auto business has been weak. And that's frustrating. That's disappointing. I wish it was better. But in the long run, it's really not going to matter. And actually, in the long run, because the company is tied to autonomy, that will actually allow Tesla to run their factories at optimal levels. So wherever customer demand is, Tesla can meet that, and then they can take the rest of the vehicles into their own fleet. That's a beautiful spot to be in. I don't know when that actually starts to kick in. It might be sometime in the next 9 to 12 to 18 months when they can really start to do that. And so that's, as Simon says, that's worth waiting for. I don't know of any other automaker in the world that can run their factories at optimal capacity and not have to worry about selling to end customers. And again, Tesla's not there today, but they will be at some point. And so that's kind of exciting. And then, of course, the whole economics around autonomy are also worth waiting for. They just started rolling out Robotaxi in Austin. Sure, it wasn't perfect, but pretty darn amazing. Herbert, you and I had a couple rides together. I forgot that the car wasn't being driven by a human. It was so natural, so comfortable, so boring that's a beautiful thing. And one of the observations I've made is that when we were driving around, I had 7 rides in total, and I noticed that no one noticed that the car wasn't being driven by a human, except for one guy, a guy driving a bus. Mm-hmm. He was pulling out from his bus stop, and he happened to look to his left as we were driving past, and the look of horror on his face was actually kind of funny. But that was one person out of probably 1,000 or more people that could have seen us driving around. Most people didn't pay any attention. It wasn't a big deal. The cars just blend in. And so, Tesla certainly has to improve FSD and Robotaxi. And you know what? They will. What we're seeing today is as bad as it will ever be. It's only going to get better from here. It's just a question of the pace of innovation. And again, as Simon said, that's worth waiting for.
Okay, that was great. So both of you, Simon and Cern, you guys sound so calm. This is so straightforward, nothing burger. Everything's going to be great. We did hear of at least 2 long-term Tesla bulls who got out of the stock. And it's not a big deal. There's lots of people will get out of the stock. That's perfectly fine. But it was just this was something that was big enough that they got scared. Things are happening, especially with the second time the Elon-Trump feud happened. What are you thinking about all this, Alexandra?
So I just want to add to Cern and Simon. The moment that caught me the most was that delivery, the autonomous delivery. And when you had that camera angle filming the car with nobody in it, I think that was, my most emotional moment of all, just because that's going to be our future, right? There will be cars running errands, nobody in them, delivering stuff, whatever. And that's our future. And people just can't fathom it yet. And it's probably doable with the cars we all drive. And if not, well, then we'll need an over-the-air update, and then they will be able to do it. It's just crazy. Everything is pointing in the right direction. But let me get to where I really want to get to, which is, how much Tesla investors have been through over the last 7 years. And there's just so much, right? There is just so many things that happened over and over and over and over again. Remember when he smoked marijuana on Joe Rogan's podcast? That was 2018. When we went through production hell, that was 2018 as well. When we went through COVID and he was fighting with the California administration of the county that the Fremont factory is in, then he got a lot of criticism about not paying taxes, paying to his foundation, whatever else. I don't count the affairs with women anymore. I don't count the children anymore. Not that it matters to me, but if this is important for you, well, you always have some food there. The Twitter acquisition and anything around that, that Twitter overhang, how long did we have to listen to that? Remember the Elon jet, banning the account, whatever else, that Starlink in the Ukraine-Russia conflict. Anti-Semitic, and then also anti-Hamas. That all followed in a couple of weeks. I mean, it was crazy. Whatever it was, Elon was condemned or talked about the Taylor Swift comment. So, cats, all that, I'm not even getting in there. The H-1B visa debate, where he defended the H-1B visas. The feud he had with the Scottish First Minister about Islamophobic memes, the assassination attempt comments, where Elon was talking about Biden and Harris not having assassination comments. Not sure that was really classy, but anyway, there we are. And obviously the whole 4 or 5 months that Doge was going on. A Nazi salute, which was not a Nazi salute, but the controversy was there. The whole feud, obviously now with Trump, the Epstein comments. I think there were some Pelosi comments as well. I mean, it just never ends. The alleged drug use. So is it important to me? No, it's not. Do I like all of it? By far not. Of course it doesn't. But what is important to me is to look at the company. It's the company I am, sincerely in love with. I tell you all the time. I obviously admire what Elon is doing here. So his private life, his political stance, his women, children, whatever, I don't care. And when you look and Cern had a brilliant chart 2 or 3 Cyber Bowls ago about when the stock jumps the most. It is always on earnings or on deliveries. And we had a good 5% jump the day deliveries came out this week. So that is what is important. And that will move away. That will move away from deliveries now to SaaS income, software as a service income. That's when they will get it. They may actually get it a little bit earlier when energy is blowing up. It's already blowing up. That they just don't see it yet because at the moment it's at 10% of revenues, but that will come. So at one point it will happen. Remember, I always told you we will also change of buckets at Wall Street at one point. It will come late because everything for Tesla always comes late. But that will be very consequential too, because so many index funds will have to stock up on more Tesla at that moment. So there are many things to come. And in the next 3 months to come, just to point this out again and again and again, is we will have a really good trimester of a really good quarter of sales, because in the US, the 7,500 EV credit is going to go away. So yes, that may play into Q4, but I have actually a good theory. This is the perfect quarter to sell as many Model 3s and Model Ys that you want, that you can produce. That's why there was actually higher production numbers in the delivery and production publication this week, because you have this period where people are sensitive to still want to take advantage of the 7,500. In that time, you ramp up the affordable product. You don't release it. You keep it undercover. I'm saying it again. Here comes my theory again for beginning of October. And then the quarter ends, the EV credit goes away, and whoops comes the new affordable credit. Oh, Herbert is
Yeah,
nodding.
I'm nodding now because, okay, of course, last rules, I didn't understand the logic. I said there's no way that they're delaying it, not on purpose. But now it makes sense. Maybe they were delaying announcing the more affordable vehicles. Like they purposely decided, right, not to say it before the end of June because they were waiting to see what happens with the big, beautiful bill. Now that that's passed, which is right, now they know that this 7,500 EV credit is going to go away. They want to keep selling the Model 3s, Model Ys as much as possible next quarter. Therefore, don't announce the more affordable vehicles till October that you were saying. But
Voila.
come on. That was pretty brilliant on your
Voila.
part. And yeah.
What are you holding there? What are you holding there? What are you
Nothing.
doing?
I think that's brilliant on your part. And I just didn't. Come on, nobody did except you. Come on.
I was
Now it
saying
makes
all the
sense.
time. I mean, we heard clearly that Lars had admitted in the last earnings call end of April that there
Yeah.
will be delays, right? So we knew it wasn't going to be June. So the question is July, August, September, and given they're retooling at the moment, they seem to be retooling at Fremont and at Austin, right?
Yeah.
That seems to happen everywhere. It seems clear to me that they are doing what they can to not publicly show the new affordable model until the current prices have exhausted themselves in this still EV rebate. And Cern, I think you jumped into a discussion we had on X with a lady who said, well, not all is bad. At least you can deduct the interest of the loans on the car, which of course is less. But imagine a new affordable model that you finance. And I mean, this is for people where $100 makes a difference, right? Where you can finance and then deduct the interest. That'd be great.
Absolutely. Yeah. No, I think your theory is very plausible. And the good news is it doesn't really matter.
That's right. It's all
But
pie in the sky.
well, but I'm just saying that the auto business is, if we're talking about next year, then we start to get into production of Cybercab and ramping of Robotaxi, and that's what everybody will be focused on.
Yeah.
Now, people that want more affordable vehicles, awesome. I want everybody to be in a vehicle that they can afford. That is absolutely fantastic. And so if Tesla can meet that need, that's great.
Well, except CERN, a theory that I've been hearing and that I've adopted from other people is that the more affordable vehicle will likely have steer-by-wire because that allows them to much more easily remove the steering wheel if they don't need it. And so what the more affordable vehicles are is not actually there to sell for a brand new, which great, new people will buy it. People want to buy a new segment, but more importantly, they are a version of the Model Y that is going to be much easier to clean, lower cost of more affordable, so that it's easier to clean and not this premium version of a vehicle that's perfect for Robotaxi.
Yeah, and even being able to take then that steering wheel out if it is repurposed as a Robotaxi full time is nice too. So Tesla is very good about building things to serve a couple of purposes. They've been forward thinking with respect to FSD and putting FSD in all these vehicles, and hardware 3 and AI 4 hardware in all these vehicles for a lot of people that never purchased FSD and didn't need it. But Tesla bit the bullet and did that and positioned themselves very well to eventually unlock the fleet. So yeah, I'm sure that these more affordable vehicles will be Robotaxi ready as well.
Good theories. So I've been hearing people say that Robotaxi launched on September 20 or June 22nd, Sunday. And they were expecting that. Didn't Elon say that there was supposed to be 10 on the first week, 20 on the second week, and 30 on the third week? Are you guys feeling that it's been delayed?
No, my thought, I wasn't down there with you guys, but I just think it's going to be a very, very slow rollout, and they're being very, very cautious, which is prudent. It's not about, they just can't have any errors. They will get it, but it doesn't matter if it's 5 or 10 and 20. The end result is once you solve one city, it's game over. but you just need to ramp very, very slowly.
So nobody here was expecting, but by this week they would have announced the geofence expansion. They did announce, or they have already expanded it to beyond just the influencers. That it's still invite only, but they've expanded to people who just signed up on the website. People who live in Austin, they've been given access to this now. Are you guys happy with that expansion, or is it? Some people are starting to get concerned that it's not happening faster.
It doesn't matter. I mean, I understand people are impatient and the stock market is impatient and sees 3 minutes from here, but it really doesn't matter. You know, what is coming in the next 2, 3, 4, 5 years is not a matter of timing. It's a matter of execution, and the execution is there. We have all the signs and confirmations now. So as Cern said, FSD will still improve. It has to still improve. That's no problem at all. You know, it's already great, but it will be flawless. And then that's it. And then the last thing you want now is some horrible headline, some real big mistake. The risk of that is much lower if you go slowly. So why would you take any risk on that? It doesn't matter.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I would say, as the guy that builds spreadsheets, I would love to see a nice trend that I can model out and say, oh, it was 10 last week, and this week it's now 20, and the next week it's 40. I would have a lot of fun projecting that out. But the point is, it's safety first. You don't want to have any issues. You want to make sure it's running flawlessly to the extent you can, and then you scale it up. As you scale, you're going to encounter issues. So they just need to be very careful about that. And frankly, I don't mind that they're taking their time. I'm sure they're working very, very hard to address everything that they see. So I think we can trust that, and they'll open it up to more vehicles and a larger territory as soon as it makes sense. But, Herbert, you and I experienced it firsthand. That is cut and paste into any area that you want to put it, right? That's what it's designed for. And that's what we're going to see at some point.
Yeah, and just to make the point, there's currently only one red Robotaxi. Now, if I'm fortunate enough to have an invitation to the shareholder meeting, which is now September, maybe even October, what do we know? I really would love to sit in that red Robotaxi. So if anybody hears us out there, I know you did. Don't make me cry.
I did it. I got that right, Alexandra. Do you guys agree with the way I set up this show is that the last week, and this includes Sunday, the Robotaxi launch, has been the most important and most exciting for Tesla investors? You have drama, you had milestones, you had it all, right? I mean, not only did we have the Elon-Trump feud, which is not a good thing, you had the Robotaxi launch, you had the very first autonomous delivery, you had the Q2 deliveries, you had this new battery factory announced. Elon's talking about a new solar Gigafactory.
Herbert, can I just ask you one question? Because you seem to still be very bothered with this Elon-Trump feud. Now, there was the first one 3 weeks ago, and you were already concerned then. How many days did it take you to get over it then? Because now we're...
Right.
And
right.
I just have this feeling, and I'm insisting on this so much. Information shelf life is getting shorter and shorter. And X is obviously a large contributor to that, just because there's so much new news. And then add to that a quite chaotic president who loves to create more news, not that we didn't have enough. So he makes a story out of everything. And then there's international news, and then there's tariffs news, and then there's this and there's that. So news has, in my view, maximum 3 days of a shelf life. Maximum. And so if you get wrapped up in these feuds and in these quarreling and bickering what they're doing, and carry it longer than 3 days over in your life, in your sentiment, whatever, you're actually doing yourself a disservice, because nobody else is. And so I really think we have to learn, and I'm not saying this just about you, but to distinguish noise from signal. This is all pure noise. Whether these two are screaming at each other, and I still think it's for theater, for 6 months, they were nearly sleeping in bedrooms next to each other, right? They were sharing everything. They were redoing and restructuring the world, deciding on international affairs, on monetary affairs, on whatever. Then Elon said, enough, I have to get back. This is too much. I've taken too much. Remember the scene with the Tesla in front of the White House? I mean, it it was too much into one direction, right? And then there had to be a stop because Tesla was under fire, right? It was so. No matter how you put it into scene, there had to be a sharp stop that allowed Elon to re-exist without political baggage. And that was only doable. That was only doable if the two of them had some clashes. And when you look at their body language, when you look even more at the action then that happens, oh, I'm going to send him back to South Africa. I mean, how ridiculous is that? He can't do that. He can't do that. It's a complete joke. And he knows it's a joke. And everybody knows it's a joke. So, just don't take it on a first degree. And if you take it on a first degree, set yourself a watch telling you 3 days later, get it out of your system now, because nothing happened in the 3 days. Nothing will happen on the 4th.
If I can chime in, Herbert, let
Okay.
me just chime in. So if you can think of, and there's a saying that I learned early on, when you're looking at great leaders or hiring people that have high abilities. And the saying that I always have to remember is, I would rather have to trim the claws off a lion than grow them on a lamb. Mm-hmm. And if you can think back, 1,000 years ago, the day of the gladiators, and if Elon was a gladiator and he's in the ring and he's performing phenomenally, and then he goes out and he gets into a bar fight afterwards and he drank too much. Maybe I'm not using a very good analogy, but the point being is, you have somebody that's extremely passionate about life, and that's Elon, and he's passionate about his businesses. And he's going to do all these odd things that we may not understand. Some of them make sense. Some of them they don't. When he makes a mistake, he'll own up to it. But at the end of the day, I always have to look at the result. And when we're in finance, we're just result orientated. And so when I look at the businesses that he runs, all I care about is the result. Everything else is just noise. And a guy like Elon, he's so passionate. He is this lion that his claws are so long and he pisses a lot of people off, but the result is phenomenal. It's a second to none.
That's exactly it. And the other thing to never forget, the United States and President Trump need Elon like no other entrepreneur in the world. There is SpaceX. The United States will lose immediately all advance that they have to every other country if they lose Elon. So he actually has leverage that nobody else has. He has a character that nobody else has. Is it always pleasant? I said it earlier. No, it's not. Do you always have to agree with all this? Certainly not. But if there is no immediate reaction, there won't be any reaction. And this is always only a 3-day cycle. So if you can just breeze through the 3 days, usually it's gone.
If I could just add my 2 cents to this as well. I've shared this before, but I think it's worth repeating. We put everybody in a box. We put our friends in a box. We put our family in a box. We put our colleagues in a box. We expect certain behavior from those people. And when they behave outside the box, we have a problem with that. And the problem is either resolved or it's not resolved. If it's not resolved, people tend to part ways. In a marriage, it results in divorce. With family, it results in estrangement. With colleagues, it results in people leaving companies. But just remember that box, we are each defining the edges of that box. The box that Simon puts Elon in looks different than the box that I put Elon in. And all of us, we all have a different boundary.
Mine has a heart shape.
Yours has a heart shape, that's perfect, right? But still, he could be outside that heart shape. And I remember talking with a client who was deeply troubled by the fact that Elon went on stage with a chainsaw. Other people couldn't care less about that. They just see that as political theater. We all anchor on something that has bothered us in his behavior. And my point is that Elon is never going to operate inside whatever box you put him in. He is who he is, and that's what makes him very special. But it also makes it very frustrating because he's operating many times outside of these boxes that we all design. And so just keep that in mind, that you are putting him in a box, whether you realize it or not. If something about Elon's behavior is bothering you, it's because you have defined that edge of the box. And that's more of an issue to resolve within yourself than necessarily that Elon needs to change.
And he actually trains us to open up our boxes. I mean, whether he does it deliberately or not, but I mean, he pushes my boundaries. There's stuff I would have probably not accepted 5 years ago that I'm just waving away now. Just because, by doing these things consistently or repeatedly is probably the better word, you just get used to it and you just shake it off. That's just it.
Let me explain and answer the question you had asked earlier. Okay, so mine is a $ box and a earth sign box, right? I mean, I'm looking at this as an investment in a business, Tesla, and a product. I look at the progress. If you look at the reason why I'm invested in Tesla, it is because of these, let's call it moonshots or Mars shots, but mostly robotaxi and robots. And so for me, that is what matters. So I'm looking at everything about the progress for robotaxi, whether or not this is a real thing that's going to translate to real revenue, that's going to disrupt real industries. So I look at that. That is, signal, not the noise. And the list that you created, Alexandra, I've lived through all of it. I've been invested in Tesla since 2012. I have never at one point decided I'm going to stop investing in Tesla and I'm going to sell my stock. I did not do that in the last two Tesla Elon-Trump feuds. So I was not one of those people that was going, crazy about the Elon-Trump feud. However, this second Elon-Trump feud, and you including the first one, what you have to look at is what's the likelihood that this event is going to impact my thesis of robotaxi launch. Is there a potential for some legal implication that's going to slow down the adoption of a federal framework for autonomy, for AI, for saying, oh my God, Elon, you control all the robots. Senators are going to vote against that and they're going to try to put you cities putting permits like they did in California. They can do all sorts of lawfare, right? Lawfare that because the person doesn't like you. So this idea that Elon, the world needs Elon more than the world. Yes, I agree with you. SpaceX, the world, U.S. needs SpaceX more than SpaceX. So all this is bluster. I agree with you, but it also doesn't mean that is a zero chance that a politician could cause a little bit harder for that. COVID. You got to shut down your factories. Here's a law. You got to shut down. Elon says, screw you, finds ways outside of it or refuses to do it, but it can happen. Laws and permits can happen. So then you weigh out, could this Elon-Trump feud cause this potential? At the same time, the same breath, you guys told me that it's unlikely that the Trump feud is going to impact Tesla's robotaxi launch. And it's like, don't even think about it. Just 3 days and it's gone. Okay. At the same time, what happened when November Trump won? What did you guys all tell me at that point? Trump is fantastic for Elon and Tesla because it's going to improve the federal framework. And in fact, that's why the stock skyrocketed, because everybody thought, that's going to ease the path for regulation. So, okay, so both cannot be true. Maybe there was no impact. And
it already has. Let me interrupt.
It has, but it's not done. It's not signed on paper. You got signed.
It's not done. I agree.
No. You got Sean Duffy coming out saying, hey, we believe in autonomous future. We're going to support it. We're going to fast track it. He said all that, but now you got this happening. Is it a possibility that Trump could say to Sean Duffy, hey, you're fired, number one, or B, you cannot do this ever, or I will punish your consistency. I can punish you. I don't know. Now, how likely is it? Very low, right? I wasn't concerned, but you have to ask the question because you're invested in the business. What's the likelihood? It's not zero. And it became higher than what it was prior to this feud, the second feud. And then when you see the rhetoric that comes in, like how serious could this get? Yes, it's going to blow over like they all do. They have blown over in a couple of days. So I don't lose sleep over it. I did not change my investment over it, but you have to then reconsider yes, you need to. It's not a nothing burger. It's something. And in fact, if anything, this is the one thing that could have happened that is probably the most impactful possibly to Tesla's business, because you're having a feud with the most powerful person who is vindictive, who has shown that he can, none of this is, it's good for the country. We're talking politics. Politics happen and these politicians will go and vindictively attack somebody and put somebody in jail, and they'll do that to each other. So, and there's ways to make it happen, even though you don't think it can happen. Like the likelihood of him being deported is less than 3% or 2% chance. He's a U.S. citizen. It's a nothing when he says that. But there is a 2% chance because there's ways that people can find ways, maybe not full deportation, but you know what I'm saying? Like, it's like it's not zero is what I'm saying. There's ways that legally.
I think deportation were zero, but first of all, so the COVID feud with the California administration, how did that end? It ended with Tesla going to Texas.
He refused to follow the law, but then they just dropped it because he was right.
So they may not have lost in the immediate term, but California lost in the medium term. And the deportation, for me, it's a zero chance. I mean, I work in immigration. There is no chance he gets Elon deported. Zero chance. And I understand. If it is only for the leverage of SpaceX, because I mean, if America loses SpaceX, that would be, impossible for Trump to justify. Impossible. So then let me just get to a point which actually I'm happy you're opening the door to, and I did make a tweet to that, a post to that. The junior senator of Wyoming, and now I'm not remembering her name. I think it's Cummins. Introduced middle of May a Senate bill where the current cap on autonomous vehicles on the federal level should be blown out. At the moment, it's 100,000 autonomous vehicles maximum in the United States. And that bill, introduced on the 15th of May, so prior to Elon leaving. When did he leave? Did he leave end of April or did he leave end of May? Maybe it was end of April. Anyway, so in 15th of May, she introduced that bill in the Senate. It has a likelihood, whenever you go, you submit a bill, there is a government tracking website who gives it a probability. It has a probability of 5%. It always had a probability of 5%, right? If that bill goes through, all your theory is wrong. All your theory is wrong because that means that they will stop any pro-Tesla.
Oh, it's not a theory.
Nobody needs.
I think it's a chance of it is zero. It's not zero, but it's not a lot. It's not a lot at all. I'm just saying that if something like this happens, it is a risk that rises in percentage chance. You have to consider it.
Well,
I'm not saying that's going to happen.
Under Biden and the potential Democrat presidency 2025, 2028, I think the chances would be much lower than they currently are, despite the two bickering at each other. I still think everything is on track. That bill was not called back.
I think we need to see actually something. I mean, these are all, if this is a risk, agreed, Herbert, it is a risk, but there would be other risks that I would put before.
I did not even once consider that I'm going to remove my investment or I'm concerned at all.
No. But
this is probably one of the risks you do need to say. Just.
But I think the media is putting it first and foremost, and my biggest concern would be what happens if United States and China have a massive falling out and they say, you know what, and they kick Tesla out of China. Right. That to me would be a bigger risk than some sort of fallout between Elon and Donald Trump. But think about this for a second. What we're watching, and we're invested in a number of AI companies, and AI companies, well, the big companies that we all know about and we're all invested in. But there's a massive race going on in terms of, and China is supporting their EV and AV market. They're subsidizing these markets, their battery market. They want to be winners, and they're competing with the United States. And so the United States has a couple winners right now, and it has to be EVs and AVs, autonomy. And so despite all this noise between Elon and Trump, do they really want to hand it over to China? Because that's their only chance, right? And there's a massive race going on. We're talking, they're already finding ways to ban ASML's equipment from going to China, NVIDIA's chips going to China. There's a massive AI race and autonomy and EV. So right now, China is trying to overtake Japan in terms of the largest automaker in the world. And I think they will do it. But the point being is, does the United States, despite all these political shenanigans, are they really going to hinder the one company that has a chance to win the EV race? That would be ludicrous. So I don't see it. I see that what's more important for the U.S. when they're talking, when Trump is talking to his advisors, they're looking at how do we win autonomy, how do we win the EV race, and how do we win AI. That's it. And all of these shenanigans between Trump and Elon, I think it's, again, what we all say, a nothing burger.
I wouldn't even take it a step further than that. I think what we're seeing playing out here is, again, a distraction that's being created to divert attention, to distract, feeds into the media. Trump couldn't care less about what the media says and about what they report. He's quite happy to let them on a wild goose chase and let them be upset about this, that, and the other thing. To Simon's point, Trump, Elon, and everybody else in power recognizes that the U.S. needs to be dominant in EVs, AVs, AI, right? I bet you even if you asked all the Democratic leaders, they would tell you the same thing, right? And what they say publicly, I'm willing to bet, is very different than what they're saying behind closed doors. I bet there's actually a lot more unity on this than we are led to believe.
100%.
So
wait,
that's one
you
thing.
you realize that the big beautiful bill was passed and it includes significant hampering of solar and energy, which is the direct fight with China. And energy is going to be, who's going to tell you who's the real winner in the economy and the world? You guys realize that these decisions are made, you know, this idea that, oh, people are making a decision because of the love for America.
No,
They're
I'm
making
not
the
saying
decision
that.
because they're getting paid and they're making political decisions. These are political decisions. Like
Yeah,
the
no, I'm
bill
not
was
saying that.
passed.
The bill is an outcome of the fact that Republicans won the election. Now they need to pay back the people that got them there. That's all this bill is.
Well, it's
Right.
it hampered the solar and energy. Elon's warning as sounding the alarm. This is serious. This is not. You guys don't know
Yeah.
what you just did. Somebody posted a post saying that they didn't just shoot themselves in the foot. They shot the U.S. just shot themselves in the heart. That's how bad this decision was. This is Elon. This is him saying this is serious. And politicians would never do something like this because it's so, you know, how do they not know that the war is against China? No, they just did it.
And I think what's happened now, they've lit a fire under Elon, and he's going to single-handedly make sure that we don't lose it.
Yeah, but the point about politicians making these decisions, and come on, guys.
No, the point, Herbert, is that the politicians say one thing in public and do something different in private.
Correct.
Right. I'm not convinced that there's this, you know, that we're acting as complete fools around all this stuff. I don't see that. I think that we will find ways to put the U.S. in a strong position. Now, will we make mistakes? Absolutely. That's just the nature of it. As far as, you know, I'm reminded of, just to go back to an earlier part of our conversation, not everybody appreciates Elon for who he is. And we have some historical precedents for this. A great one is Galileo. Galileo turned himself in to serve trial because he thought that the earth was round. It was against the law to believe that the earth was round back in his day. Right? That's an example of, in my mind, Elon is so far ahead of us on so many issues. Buying Twitter to protect free speech. The whole Doge thing for the government. He is trying to show us, and he's taking the slings and arrows, just like some other people did in historical times, over his views and his beliefs. Only with the passage of time will we truly know, you know, how great Elon is and how ahead of his time he is. And that's also difficult for us because he's addressing things, particularly with this government spending issue in Doge. He's hitting things that affect people's lives. No one wants to give up the dollars that the government gives them. So they will fight tooth and nail to protect their turf. But yet, he's right. He's trying to tell us that this is a problem that if we don't solve it, we're all cooked. There is no Tesla if there is no United States, if the United States goes bankrupt, et cetera. So again, the notion of putting Elon in a box, he's extending so far out of anybody's box that you look at the guy and you just don't understand him. And I think the same thing happened to Aristotle, same thing happened to Galileo, Michelangelo, All these guys.
I love your analogy. Your analogy on this, Cern, because I actually have spoken about this recently and to friends and clients. And I said, I feel like I am speaking to people and telling you the world is round. And you're all coming back to me and telling me it's flat. And I'm like, trust me, eventually. And I've said this many times to very close friends, you are going to eventually, you're going to figure out that the world is round. Hopefully I don't go to jail first.
Sure. Okay. Good conversation. That's fun. Robotaxi launch, first autonomous delivery. I just interviewed James Dama, and I was, we'll drop that video this weekend. And very, very encouraged with his confidence level that Tesla has. Again, I don't want to use the words, but he explains it better than I would. So he's very confident that Robotaxi is working, and it's going to work just great, and it's going to expand and scale. That this limiter for scale is not because the technology needs to get that 9 nines at the end. It's there. It's more about the operations. So for us, you guys all sound very, very confident. I am as well. I was very conservative prior to me actually doing the 10 rides myself and actually seeing for myself how this product works. This thing is happening. And it's really about the whole experience is fantastic. It was just so well done. And then they did the first autonomous delivery. And I heard people say, no, that was staged. That they pre-mapped that drive, that they had, cars following it. And so that not a big deal, despite the fact that 8 Tesla AI employees came out and they were like just so proud of what they accomplished, and they showed photos and they were saying how great this of an accomplishment this was. Some people are still just dismissing how important this was. Anybody want to comment on that?
I mean, you can't help people being critical. As we said earlier, there were people not believing that the Earth was round. So, if somebody does not want to believe this, how can you prove to them? They were not sitting in the car because that was the whole point. There was nobody sitting in the car. So, and the other thing that really got on my nerves where they're saying, oh my God, but then they changed the over-the-air update. The client got... Of course, the client got another version because we're still obligated to supervise the car. They couldn't have left the car unsupervised in client's hands. That is not what the law allows you to do. You only have the right to run a certain number of cars in Austin at the moment, and you can't just deliver cars and leave that software on there. It's actually wonderful that Tesla just can touch a button and then it sets it back to the normal consumer version until we're all ready. I mean, but you can't help these people. I'm giving actually up trying to convince them because you feel like you're talking to windmills, right? And they're just continuing their story.
I had to pinch myself. I can't believe that you have cars driving. And we know all of us have FSD cars. We test them, we drive them. And the fact that there's a car driving from the factory to the customer end to end, we know that it's possible. We know that it does this on a regular basis. So, but the fact we're watching this happening and everybody's asleep at the wheel, it's like
literally.
The same client I was speaking to today, and I said, this is why I could never buy another vehicle than a Tesla. They're the safest. They drive themselves. Once you get used to having a car that drives itself, you never want to have something else. And so I'm making these, and she said, well, I'm not really interested in a Tesla right now. I'm not a big fan of Elon, but I like the investment. But it's kind of like, I don't know, maybe this is a bad analogy, but it's kind of like talking to a 12-year-old or 13, 14-year-old teenager and get him to read a book about sex. And somebody reads it and goes, well, that just seems kind of icky. And I don't really like that. And you have to actually drive it. And then you'll realize what the hoopla is about. And so every person that I get into a Tesla, and it's usually elderly clients, after a meeting, I say, listen, let's go for a drive. I need you to understand why we own this, not the headline that you've read on whatever news site on a regular basis, because Elon and Tesla make the front page of every news site almost on a daily basis. And I take them for a ride, and they see it, they witness it, and they're just like blown away. And they're like, wow, this actually really works. And so this drive was another epic moment. Again, tumbleweeds in the media. Nobody talked about this. And that's where the opportunity lies. That's where you're watching it. You get to test the product. This is the Apple moment of Apple comes out with a wonderful smartphone. Everybody goes, well, there's a BlackBerry. And they say, well, now you can connect to the internet and use everything that you have. People say, well, it's a little bit expensive. And so we're able to invest in a company where we actually get to see the technology. We get to see how it's evolving. And everybody else is just kind of going, what's the big deal? But it is really a big deal because nobody else, unless somebody can come to me, I'd worry if another company, we're worried about Google. Okay. We're worried about Google because their dominance in search is no longer, and they're doing a great job in AI, but they do not have a monopoly anymore. And so we're looking and saying there's a number of leaders, they have the resources, they have great people, but it's not a sure thing anymore. And so we're so cautious, we're reducing our exposure on Google or Alphabet. And we're gonna wait and see and watch what happens. But in terms of Tesla, I can't find another company that is winning in all of these massive categories. And if they do come up, I'll be the first to admit and say, you know what? There's somebody else that's winning. There's somebody else that has that's doing something better in terms of their technology or their way of going about it. And we need to reduce our exposure until we're certain. But in terms of, Elon getting political and things like that, has nothing to do with what the company is actually doing. So no, I'm not. Sorry about my rant there. I'll
That's great. Do each of you have a risk that is, if it's not the Elon-Trump feud, what is the biggest risk that you're following?
For me, it's just execution risk. And even then, I'm not particularly worried because Tesla is so good at executing across the board. They have a massive team, 100,000 plus people that work really hard, and they have a track record of executing. The delays are frustrating, but you know what? You don't change the world on a timeline. So I'm not particularly worried. If the Elon-Trump feud was true, you're right, Herbert. Trump could do a lot of damage to Tesla and Elon if he wanted to. Right, that would hurt, and we certainly saw that during the Biden administration. What happens when an administration turns your back on one of the most important companies in the country? How challenging that was. But even so, Tesla found a way to succeed. Right, and SpaceX certainly did, and that's again a case in point of the government needs SpaceX more than SpaceX needs the government. Right, for sure. Are we really going to ask Russia to launch satellites for us or send astronauts to the space station? I don't think so. It's pretty silly. Yeah, well, back in the day, yeah.
I'm joking. My wife is Russian, so we make jokes about all this all the time. To your point, Cern, is and what's the biggest risk that I see, Herbert, is yes, execution risk. But that being said, do we see somebody else executing better than Tesla? In which we don't. And if I see it, then yeah, I'll reduce our exposure, but we don't see it. So yeah, the risk is execution risk. And when does it happen? But there's nobody that's executing better than Tesla.
For me, the risk is actually that people understand it quicker than I can buy more.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm very happy that they're also ignorant. And I'm actually, in the end, I'm grateful to the press for always doing the job. This week, we had much better production numbers than we thought for. And then the whole German press, because I still keep an eye on the German press, the whole French press, and obviously our friends in America, all they could do is compare it to Q2 last year to find, these ridiculous headlines. And it's just, and that's good. If that's where they want to go, perfect. The only thing is, obviously, there are investors who have a shorter time horizon than us. So for them, time is money. And that's the one thing I always warn people. Tesla is not a stock where you have to be very time sensitive. You need your time to let it play out. I've given up on options. I've given up on any short term. I just sit it out.
Other than execution. The other thing is innovation. And I've been pointing this out as often as I could, is that people think that Tesla is just sitting still. Oh no, right? Xiaomi has a brand new SU7, YU7 that is incredible. And it could be. It's one of the best electric vehicles out there. Meanwhile, Tesla's announced that their cars self-drive, right? And then now Tesla just announced that they have a new battery factory, the LFP battery factory that's nearing completion. They showed that video. And Elon's now talking about a new solar gigafactory. These things, you know, all of a sudden we got a new factory, you know, that it's important for not only the vehicles, but also megapacks. It's going to lower the price of the cars and or wherever they end up using it, you know. But it's impressive because they just keep producing something new that you hadn't even expected. Every 2 years, there'll be something brand new. Here's a new solar gigafactory.
And it's so thought through. I mean, who else has the charging station? Who else has so much vertical integration? Who else, whenever they realize that something is going to miss, is in a capacity to build the factory to do it? Be it for rare earth extraction, be it for refinery, be it for, I mean, they're just tackling it and getting the job done. Who else does that? There's nobody. There's nobody. Everybody else has problems. And I'm not saying that the problems of the other people really matter to me. They don't. But when I look at them and these problems, I realize how, you know, fortunate we are to have a company like Tesla, where this has all been laid out, master planned, revised, adapted to, you know, current challenges, and they keep going and they keep going and they keep going. I mean, you know much more than I do on the bot side. And maybe you want to update us on that. But I think even on the bot side, there is not a lot of competition.
I think the biggest risk that's out there clearly is the key man risk. Tesla without Elon, I think, could still be quite successful because the wheels have been set in motion. But boy, it would sure be a hit to the company to lose them. Like Apple, for example. Apple's been very successful without Steve Jobs, but it would probably be even more successful had he still been around.
Yeah, that's interesting.
I think
because he would
Apple
still have Tim Cook. Tim Cook would have still been there to do the operations, and he would be available for creating the net new businesses that stopped appearing.
And maybe the Apple car would have happened. Maybe Apple would be in the humanoid bot space. They should be, in my opinion. This is going to be the next massive consumer product. For Apple to not be involved in this is actually kind of shocking.
Yeah.
And maybe Apple will at some point. They're famously late. And they when they come in, they tend to do a pretty good job. But I don't know. They haven't shown much effort yet.
It's tough. It's almost impossible. You know, to become a new automaker. I mean, we all know the hurdles of, you know, most automakers, you know, generate a substantial amount of the profits from servicing the existing vehicles on the road. The fact that Tesla was able to make it through this and have actually profits on making it in a car. And then Apple getting into this, and they have to have they're not a manufacturer, right? Tesla's brilliance is manufacturing. And so, you know, Apple outsources their manufacturing to Foxconn. Could they? I think they could design it, but again, the brilliance of Tesla is their factories. So it's this weird conundrum that, I expect a lot more. We have owned Tesla. We've owned Apple for many years. I'm disappointed with their AI. I'm constantly trying to use Siri and hoping it gets better. I know this show is about Tesla, but like with Apple, I'm disappointed. And I suspect they have the platform with the user base to be able to deliver AI and a proper AI assistant. I mean, I'm using Grok and it's phenomenal. But again, they don't have the manufacturing. The major thing would be, how do you manufacture? And Apple has actually gone to Hyundai and looked to develop an EV, possibly AV, but it wasn't them that could manufacture. I think they figured it out that they would not be able to do the manufacturing at a specific cost so that it could be affordable.
Just think what would have happened if Elon would have went to Steve Jobs instead of Tim Cook with his request back in the day.
For Apple to buy Tesla. Yeah. Never answer that question. So
No,
at the
never know.
end of this year, right? So here we are, July. We're heading into the second half of this year. Are you guys, some people are thinking this is going to be a really incredible second half of this year. But others are a lot more cautious, saying it's going to be in the next year. Yet again, wait till next year because Robotaxi is going to be slow. And they're just going to do smaller growth. There's signs that signals that they've slowed down the bot production by a couple of months. Could be seen as good because that means that they are refining it for the next generation of the bot. But the idea that we're going to expect 2,000 or 5,000 bots this year is unlikely. You've got the new reduction of the 7.5 thousand tax credit. That's going away. Things are slower than we expected. But of course, Robotaxi launch. So that's the key thing. But are you guys much more cautious about what to expect this year? Or do you think this is going to be a great ending for this 2025?
Maybe I take it first. I think it's actually going to improve. I think the good news are going to roll in. Now, it all depends on, what your expectations were. But remember, my expectations were for second half of 2026. And I actually think it may stabilize and have an impact on the stock price much earlier than that. So I think, like I said earlier, Q3 is going to be strong in terms of deliveries and production because of the disappearing EV credit. Now, will Wall Street take that into account or not? Who knows? How they discount of stuff. But I do believe the numbers will be good. I think the new model, my theory, beginning of October, is going to be a really good surprise. If they manage doing that, I have a very aggressive lease price of less than $200 a month. If they manage to get it in there, that would really, spur demand, touch a completely new client base. And I mean, don't forget, with $99 more per month, you then have it as full self-driving car. So that could really be an interesting package. And then, whether we have this year 1,000 bots or 2,000 or 5,000, even 1,000 will be impressive, right? And I'm with the bots. I'm really of the opinion that less they show us, better we are off. So much stuff has been tried to be copied. I'm not saying it got copied, but tried to be copied. Let's just develop this whole thing until it's ready to go and mass produced, and then we're good.
Yeah, I would say my expectations for short-term results are always pretty modest. I'm not really worried about the short term. I mean, think about how silly it is to worry about whether Tesla produces 5,000 bots by the end of this year when we're expecting long-term to see hundreds of millions of bots produced. I mean, if you're worried about 5,000, you're focused on the wrong thing. Now, of course, we would all love everything to be faster than expected, but unfortunately, building a functional humanoid bot that's autonomous is a massive undertaking for anybody. Expect delays. Expect that things are going to take longer than we want them to. And you know what? That's okay. Does anybody really remember when Apple came out with the iPhone?
Right.
I mean, does it matter now? I mean, it does if you need Tesla to perform in a certain way over the next 6, 9, 12 months. Sure, it matters. But if you're a longer term investor, none of this matters. We would all prefer that Robotaxi is safe. We would all prefer that the bot, they get the design elements down, they figure out how to manufacture it at scale. If it takes a few extra months to do that, awesome.
Well said, Simon.
So I think the important thing is to be invested. And I look at this and go, what would be the catalyst that we could see over the next 6 to 12 months? And to Cern's point is, I'm not concerned about next week, and we're owning this company for where it should drive value, shareholder value, over the next 4 to 5 years. That's where our clients are thinking. I'm thinking 10, 15, 20 years. And so many of the companies we have owned in our portfolios, we've owned for 10, 15, 20 years, and they just look ridiculous, when you look at where you purchased them back then. We think the opportunity is larger in terms of Tesla. So the risk would be not owning enough when it does run. So what are those catalysts? Well, one, when they introduce a lower affordable vehicle, I think we're going to see a large catalyst in the stock. That's not to say that I'm buying it ahead of time because I think that this is going to come out, but I think that's going to be a catalyst. It's a risk if you do not own the stock and you're thinking of timing it. you could have this new affordable model come out tomorrow, and all of a sudden the stock runs 20%. And then it starts running higher as analysts start to understand, wow, okay, this is the total addressable market of a $20,000 EV or a $25,000 EV. That's one catalyst. The other one that I'm personally looking at and I'm interested in is, when does FSD get near perfect? I'm still testing it today. It was getting really, really good. It's incredible. It's better than anything else on the market. But when do we get to that point where it's like, it's solved, and now we can make vehicles that drive themselves, and you can design the vehicle around a fully autonomous vehicle without a steering wheel? And so that's also another catalyst. Is that going to happen in 3 months, in a month? I don't know. But those are the optimists that's ahead of us. But those are two catalysts that I don't know when that's going to happen. So we just own the stock. And we recognize that that'll probably happen within the next year or two. But again, 3, 4, 5 years out, we still see a $2,000 stock price based on the cash flows of those existing businesses.
Great answers, guys. I think that there could be a surprise at the end of this year. I'm not expecting it, but think about this. The version of full self-driving, you were just saying that, Simon, that Tesla's using today in Austin for the Robotaxi product, the service that's alive right now in the network, is something that they feel comfortable enough that it can drive people, right, around. If and when they take that version and they send it to your car, my car here, that could be the one that says, okay, this is unsupervised. You can sleep. Tesla will take over the legal liabilities for that. And I think James was saying that they might actually do that for a defined geography. Like, they won't let you do it anywhere, but they'll say, okay, if you live in Seattle, we feel very strongly in Seattle, you can do this. Theoretically, this could be there already. Now, let's say it isn't. And if it isn't, then it's the next generation of FSD that can happen, which could launch by the end of the second half of this year as well. So those are just potential surprises that could happen for this year. So, okay. Thank you, guys. Fantastic show as always. Thank you, Alexandra, Tesla Boomer Mama. Follow her on X. You got Simon Hale, portfolio manager for Wellington Altus Private Wealth. Check him out. Check out his website, as well as Cern, another great website at brilliantadvice.net. Check us out. Check them all out. Thanks to you soon. Bye, everybody.
Bye.
Thanks, Herbert.
Thanks, Herbert.
I've created a website that is the most comprehensive resource for the Tesla investor. Please check it out. Simply go to my website at herbertong.com.